Thank you very much. I'm very pleased to be here. I'm Julien Venn, board director of the European Connected Health Alliance. So we are very, very pleased to partner with HealthTech Europe for this session today, and with this track, Healthy Future track today. ECH Alliance is, of course, working internationally in digital health, and we are very, very pleased to partner with HealthTech Europe. We have talked this morning about the digital transformation of healthcare in different aspects around telemedicine and connected health, around more personalized medicine, around biotech innovation. So one common asset, one common origin of all these innovations is, of course, the raw material we are all using, the data. Whether we are talking about developing drugs, developing vaccine, digitizing the healthcare services, or making them more personalized, more predictive, more preventive, we are talking about data. So a clear objective is to develop data-driven systems for better care, for better policies, for better research and innovation. We need qualitative data, and we need this data to be available. The challenge as well is the condition of deployment of this digital solution, the condition of management of this data, and we are talking about challenges that at the moment in Europe we are talking a lot about. Europe, as you know, is opening this year a new phase with the launch of several programs, several policies, the recovery plan, of course, after the COVID, with the Next Gen initiative, the Horizon Europe, the EU for Health program, the Digital Europe program. Well, a series of programs are launched by the European Commission, and a clear priority has been put on data with the launch of European data spaces in different sectors, and healthcare has its own data space, the European Health Data Space, and this is the subject of this session. What is it? What are the objectives of this European Health Data Space? How will it work in practice? How the stakeholders, whether they are governments, industry, healthcare provider, researcher, or even citizens, can participate and embark on this journey? These are a few questions we will try to solve and to answer during this session. So for that, I have the privilege and I have the chance to be joined by four high-level great experts in this field, and I'm pleased to welcome them. So I would like to welcome Lubna Wafa. She's CEO at Okra.ai. She's as well a member of the European high-level expert group on trustworthy AI. She's based in UK. Hi, Lubna. I receive and I welcome as well Louisa Astouve. She's International Policy Manager at the French Health Data Hub in Paris. Welcome, Louisa. As well, Jeroen Tas, who is CIO and CSO at Philips in Netherlands, and member of the Gaia X initiative. And finally, Markus Kalliola, who is Project Director at Citra in Finland, and is a coordinator of joint action around the European health data space. So thank you to you for to join me on this session. We are very pleased to welcome you, and we will go straight in the discussion. I would start with you, Markus, if you agree. Thank you to be here. So I was saying that the priority around the European health data space has been clearly defined by the European Commission and the European Commissioner. You recently launched an initiative at the beginning of the year, if I'm correct, called TEDAS, stating toward the European health data space. So it's a joint action with a lot of member states involved and a lot of stakeholders involved. Could you tell us a bit, please, Markus, what is the idea behind first the European data spaces, and especially in healthcare, the European health data space? What is the idea behind this concept?
Thank you, Julian, and thanks for having me in this very interesting discussion. What is a European health data space as a concept? I think I would like to answer first, what is it not? So it is definitely not a single IT system, database, or architecture, as sometimes I hear people talking about it. And I would like to go back to the Commission on this with the launch of the data strategy last year. And in that paper, they really, I think they go detail in what is the data space, what they mean by it, and what is it sector specifically also. And the definition that I understood, at least myself, is that the data spaces they foster an ecosystem of companies, civil society, and individuals, and to create new products, services that are based on accessible data. And they aim to overcome these legal and technical barriers for data sharing across organizations. So I think there it laid down that it is for all of us, it's for the society, for the companies and the individuals. And it is not just a technical effort, it's also include the legal settings, organizational, semantical, and technical, of course. But I just wanted to highlight that definitely it is just not a technical problem that we are solving here. Now, when we go then more into the sector-specific data spaces, so when we talk about health, in health we are in a very different situation than in many other sectors, as the European Union doesn't have direct competency in health, but of course in creating this kind of single market for data and a common way of working, there the European Commission has competencies. So in internal markets, in single markets, we can create regulation. But before we start thinking what kind of regulation, what kind of settings we need for the European health data space, we need to put the big picture there. What is horizontal framework for ourselves? What is horizontal and what is sectoral? I think that's one of the key questions to solve before we can think how we go forward with the European health data space. And in there we have good legislation, for example, the GDPR, the proposed Data Governance Act, we have the EID coming, and a lot of horizontal topics have been already solved and some have been proposed. Then when we understand what is horizontal and what is sectoral, then we can start solving the sectoral problems and how to make that work better. And as I said, health is a specific sector. And because health is specific, the European Commission have a financial instrument called joint actions to try to solve a specific problems. So the European Commission started this joint action that I'm leading, called TEHDAS, towards the European health data space, to exactly start thinking how the European health data space should be set up. What are the different options regarding the governance mechanisms, technical infrastructure, semantical issues, and how the individual can be involved in that. So we are there to help the Commission and the Member State on creating that European health data space, which will then foster the whole ecosystem. And as you said, the project started this year, into the last 2 years, and we have 25 European countries involved in that process. So I think that is my first ideas for you, and looking forward for the discussion today.
Thank you, Marcus. Just a complementary question for you. You have 25 countries represented by several stakeholders, even several by countries as well. I've seen as well recently that you have opened the partnership to external partners on some actions. Is it possible to get involved in your initiative for the people hearing us today?
Yes, definitely. Since the beginning of the joint action, even before we started in the planning phase last year, we took the stakeholder engagement very seriously in our joint action, because Europe is a promised land for health projects. There's so many, and there's a lot of wisdom already gathered and thought. So the first thing we thought is how do we get that already thought through answers to our joint action, so that we don't start thinking the same problems again. I think around 1/3 of our budget goes into these kind of linking activities, including stakeholder forums, project forums, where we bring together different European projects. That can be still, projects can still join that project forum, for example. Next week, we have our first policy forum, where we have different countries and different ministries taking part of discussion regarding the European health data space. And last but not least, early this year, we had open call for stakeholders to join our advisory groups. So we had around 200 applications from all over Europe, from different stakeholders participating, and then we selected the ones that were most suitable and represented the wide variety of stakeholders to advise us. So that has been closed. So there we don't no longer accept more applications to the advisory board, but other stakeholder groups are still open. And of course, we try to have dialogue with as many people as possible, and we accept invitations to discuss the European Health Data Space as much as we just have opportunities. So.
Great, thank you very much, Marcus. So if you're interested, guys, please connect and tune in on the tedas.eu website, and you will have all the information. Thank you, Marcus. So we have seen this pan-European initiative involving largely the stakeholders in the healthcare systems across Europe. It would be interesting to focus at the member state level and at the national level. And I'm now asking to Luisa to explain us what is happening in France. France has been kind of pioneer in Europe as well to build a health data hub, the one you're working at, Luisa. I wanted to understand why France took this decision. What were the context and the objectives at the beginning of the health data hub, and why so early stage initiative in France? What were the success factors of this hub?
Thank you so much, Julien. Thank you for inviting the Health Data Hub for this important session here about the European Health Data Space. And just before that, we're also involved in the European Health Data Space. So I'm going to speak about that later. But first of all, to focus on the Health Data Hub itself, it is indeed the unique gateway to access health data in France. And as you said, it is kind of a pioneer structure. I don't want to say early because I think we could have done all of this already much earlier, but at least, you know, the structures are currently being created in different countries, and France could set an example for that. Indeed, why was the Health Data Hub created? Well, there were a lot of abundant, diversified, beautiful databases in France, and there still are. And we have one of the largest health claims database in the world, which covers almost all of the French population. So having seen this, we saw also that there was lots of these databases which were being underexploited. So for many reasons, for example, the data were being scattered among multiple databases and which were not interoperable. Also, many of these data or databases and their access procedures were quite difficult to understand for outsiders. Some of the access procedures were very heterogeneous and complex, and obviously due to the sensitivity of these data. And also tools and skills to process big volumes of data securely, obviously, is necessary, were often very expensive for some small scale projects, but also for startups or for small research teams. So taking into consideration all of these challenges, the Health Data Hub was created by law, actually in 2019, by the Transformation Law of July 2019, and then officially by ministerial order in November 2019. After the Villani report. So the Villani report was a parliamentary mission called AI for Humanity, which promoted the creation of such a health data hub. And then the president announced the creation of the French Health Data Hub as major pillar of the French national AI strategy. So what does the Health Data Hub stand for? So the Health Data Hub ensures easy, unified, transparent, and secure access to health data for public interest research projects, aiming at improving the quality of care and patient support. We are indeed one of the few structures at the international level to provide a unique national gateway to health data for public interest research.
Okay, thank you. And to go a bit more in deep on your activities at the hub, how does it work concretely? How does the stakeholder get involved? Which kind of projects are you managing there?
So the Health Data Hub is a public interest group, that its legal form, and we're composed of 56 stakeholders, which are all gathered in our General Assembly, which is divided into 9 colleges, which represent the whole health data ecosystem in France. So we have there the state through different ministries, we have the health insurance funds, the education and research sectors, different health agencies, healthcare professionals, and obviously healthcare system users, which are part of the General Assembly. And last but not least, the industry is also there. So these actors form up part of the Health Data Hub, and they are part of major decision making. So there's both the General Assembly and also the Executive Board, which for major decisions obviously needs to be consulted. Then we have a structure which is about 55 people as of today, with big growth actually over the past year. So the past year has been an incredible year of growth with a lot of activities. And we currently have 4 missions. So the first mission is, as I said previously, we are a unique gateway. So we assist project coordinators in their administrative procedures to access the health data. So there are 2 major steps in France to access health data. So you first have to go to the National Ethics and Scientific Committee. It's called CESRES, evaluating the scientific validity and public interest of the research project. And then once the opinion is positive, it's being sent to the CNIL, which is the National Data Protection Agency. So that's the first mission. The second one, once authorization is obtained, the Health Data Hub provides for project coordinators who choose the Health Data Hub as the platform, provides the necessary data through a state-of-the-art platform offering advanced storage, combining processing and data analytics capacities. And the third role is that we offer interesting data availability of interesting data sources through what we call catalog. The catalog is a collection of strategic databases which are replicated on the technological platform, always in agreement with the data holders or data custodians, and updated regularly with regard to their strategic interest. And last but not least, we have an important role in federating the health data ecosystem and maintaining strong links. So we encourage the sharing of knowledge, of best practices among these key actors, always with the goal to foster innovation. For example, we have organized a data challenge last year. There was a symposium this year with the MIT and the National Academy of Medicine called AI and Medicine. There was a big winter school called AI for Health, which was take part in January. There will be a new one next year. So save your agendas, obviously. So all of these activities are part of our other 4 missions. And there's also a service offer, which is crucial for 2 types of projects, to respond to your question. So the first type of projects are projects aiming at combining different data sources. And the second type is for projects that require large volumes of data, for example, for the training of artificial intelligence algorithms. So they need to benefit from such type of technological platform. So to date, we're supporting 27 pilot projects and 15 contributing to the management of the current pandemic. And 25 new projects are expected until the end of the year, and 25 priority databases will be part of the catalog that I just mentioned.
Okay, very interesting and very diversified kind of project, so it's very interesting. So again, I call the audience to look at it and join potentially the Health Data Hub. So you said just earlier that you're very involved, of course, in the initiative of the European Health Data Space. You're involved in the TEDAS joint action as well. What are your expectations? How do you foresee your role, and how France will participate to this pan-European initiative?
On the one hand, it is part of the mission where we federate the health data ecosystem. So we're not alone participating in this joint action on the European health data space, but also federating several actors in France, for example, 2 universities, Aix-Marseille and Toulouse 3, but also the National E-Health Agency and also INSERM, the National Institute for Health Research, with the Rare Disease Service Unit, among others, and also HCL, which is a hospital group in Lyon. So we do federate the health data ecosystem in the different work groups that Marcus just explained. So for example, the work group 5, we are leading a task on health data governance. So we're seeing what are the conditions necessary to promote cross-border health data exchange with a rare disease use case, for example. We also are active part in work package 6 on data quality, on the infrastructure work package, and we're co-leading together with Hungary the work package on citizens, where we're going to lead a major citizen consultation in 3 pilot countries, in the UK, in Belgium, and in France, to assess citizens' perception on health data, which will be very important as an insight for the European health data space. So what we expect from the European health data space, I mean, the joint action, as Marcus so well explained, provides the options that the Commission can then choose from when designing that space. But we expect, obviously, that this space will be an open door, I mean, for innovation, but first of all, for having visibility on what data sources are available, for improved interoperability between all of our different data sources, and to be really also considering citizens and that ambition. But I think the key word here is interoperability and trust of citizens.
Thank you, Luisa. Very clear. And we look forward to see the next actions of the hub and of the European Health Data Space joint action. I will now ask to Lubna to join the conversation. Lubna, you are a researcher, you are as well CEO, you have been awarded of several prizes, so in the AI field and the entrepreneurship field. So I wanted to ask you first to explain us, and we need to learn a bit more about what you're doing at Okra. What is your business? What is your activities? What kind of projects you develop? What exactly you're doing in Okra?
Great, thank you, Julien. Thank you for having me here. At Okra, we are using an AI productization company, which means we deploy AI systems that learn from data that is both in the private domain owned by life science companies on top of the legacy systems, and we combine it with a broad range of data in the public domain extracted from either from regulatory side or clinical trial publication and so on. So we combine and we create what we call the brain for the life science organizations. And next to the workforce, we build the AI brain that learns from all the data from those systems and from the open data to support their workforce, both on the field, so people that meet with doctors, that meet with payers and investigators, and also to the strategy teams. And all for the sake with one mission is to bring innovative drugs faster to patients. Because the main problem, what we see, that we have a lot of innovation in the life science industry, a lot of novel molecules, but the portion that gets to patients is very small, given the time. So how can we use data and algorithms to bring those drugs faster, regardless you're living in France or Germany, regardless or you're living in urban or rural area, that you as a citizen get the drug that is the best for you. The way we use AI, and as the discussion, I've been in a few roundtable discussions around the European health data space with the Commission, as well as with a few member states. And my main observation there is the discussion when we talk about it, it's still in the mindset of one of studies. It's like we do research with it. That's statistics. It's not about AI deployment. It's less about how can we leverage this data to bring drugs faster to patients, which is the key point that I keep repeating. Great that we're doing this, but what is it gonna mean for the patients? Research, we're great at research in Europe. So, and we need to push that boundary, but what we need to do is to scale and to bring innovative treatments and therapies faster to patients. And to be honest, we're very happy that this initiatives is now start to materialize, but I keep repeating the example that I can compare where we are in the healthcare data space, and not for these initiatives in general. It reminds me of the Red Flag Act back in 1865, where the automotive industry, when the cars came next to the horse carriages in London, they had a man in front of the car walking with a red flag. So cars were not allowed to drive because and that's what we're having here. So it took 30 years to take the man in front of the car. So can we afford to wait 30 years before we start using health data and in the deployment way, not just for research? And that is what we can't afford, especially with the inflection point we had last year in 2020. I mean, we saw that we had to move fast. We have now to change. It's not, I mean, in my industry, in the life science, we moved from 10 years to develop a vaccine to 10 months. So we had to do things quickly. And we could see that clinical trials were not enough. We had to do clinical trials in an adaptive way. We mostly used real world data here to be able to make decisions. And that's why I think it's really, really important for the people that are here in this panel are involved in these decisions, and also the wider public to think about the fourth industrial revolution that we are moving into, and that we're forced to move into because we need to move faster, that we need to create this health data space that allows for real-time speed, and it allows to drive our competitiveness and not just our research, to open access to companies to that we can create and reach to wider patients and be able to contribute in a way that that is faster. So I can give an example, the data that we use at Okra. So it's coming from legacy systems by our clients, or data in public domain, it's in PDFs or in different languages. It's really hard to get access of what it really means. So, and the problem, if we have some better data, we can do a lot of magic with it. And so where do you see the applications of AI happening in the industry in Europe today? Only for low-level data. What does that mean in the signal processing way? Data coming from a machine, imaging, sensors. When there is a human being in the picture, we are blocked. We can't get reach of that data. So, but the thing is, I mean, we need that data to be able to move the needle in healthcare, because it's all about human beings. So yeah, can we move faster? Yes, I think, but we do really need to realize the potential of what we can achieve, but also what we are missing out if we don't make that jump now.
Thank you, Lubna. Yeah, I understand your message. The barriers and obstacles you're meeting every day, I assume, in your activities to have access. You were talking about real-world data, so it involves human beings, and you were talking about participation of real humans and not only machine in the contribution to this data. Did you have some experience where you involved directly the patients to collect the data, the professionals to collect the data, to have more accurate and more precise data, and how a more variety of data larger than machine can provide?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, when there is a third parties involved, third-party data access, where you can buy the data, but it's mostly coming from the US. Yes, we have access to those data sets through our clients. And to be honest, as you mentioned, my role at the high-level experts group on advising what is the ethical guidelines for using and deploying AI systems, we do have those in place. And at Okra, we are on the forefront. We developed all those mechanisms, checks on the accuracy, on the bias, the explainability. So we have all that in place. But the big obstacle in Europe is to get access of the data. So what we end up using, as you mentioned, when we need to know information about the patients, we use data coming from the US to be able to derive those profiles, or what is the profiles of patients that respond to these treatments. It's not coming from Europe. So I mean, I'm very optimistic in the sense we have now the guidelines and for implementing trustworthy AI, and we have this initiative. So I think we can move ahead and make that a kind of step forward to allow AI deployments and AI productization on top of the health data space. Even that we have, when I talk to the member states and so on, so it's not perfect, it's going to be higher level granularity, it's okay. At least we can start with that and we improve as we move on. It's not, it's in every industry, the data quality, data is not being collected to train AI systems. It's been collected for workflow purposes, for like the AMR and for the claims, for transactional purposes. It's not being collected to train AI, but that's okay. That's the case for every industry. We can still train algorithms on top of that and derive value.
Thank you very much, Lubna. I will ask as well to Jeroen to join the conversation. So, Jeroen, you're working at Philips. So first, I wanted to just stay a couple of minutes on your role at Philips and the link in your activities in R&D, I assume, but as well in the usual business as usual activities of Philips. What kind of link as an industry do you see with the European Health Data Space Initiative, and which kind of benefit you can extract from that? What is your point of view as an industry, just to follow up with the statements from Lubna?
Yeah, thanks. And I was quite impressed with Lubna's passionate plea to bring it into the hands of patients and providers. And that's clearly what we want to do as well. I'm leading strategy and innovation for the company, so R&D falls under that. And clearly, we remodeled ourselves as a health tech company. Many people know Philips. I think everybody knows Philips. But many people don't know that we are truly a health tech company now, and everything we invent, everything we bring to market will be in the interest to create better outcomes for consumers, better control of their health, and better outcomes when they get disease. So that's why Lubna's words resonated with me, and sometimes we forget it. That's the purpose. The outcome that we are seeking is really improving the way healthcare is being delivered. Healthcare is being in the hands of consumers, of citizens. And we've seen in the last 1.5 years that our healthcare systems are incredibly fragmented, that even the pharmaceutical industry has done really well in development vaccination. Our understanding of what COVID does with people with different comorbidities, the protocols that we need to better care for those patients, and the protocols that we need to manage this on a population perspective were very slow to come. And that's exactly the kind of things that we want to address at Philips. So we believe that we can create better patient outcomes, we can create a more efficient health system if the diagnosis of patients becomes more precise, if the treatment becomes more tailored to the real needs of that patient, and if the care of that patient is more personalized. Now, the only way we can do that at scale is if we can have our hands on the data, and I mean in the larger sense, so providers and patients. If patients have better understanding of their own condition, of their own triggers for deterioration or stabilization, if providers have deeper insight in the role of true health drivers, then I think we can all create better propositions and solutions. Now, that data is both on an individual level, and that's why we talk about primary use of data, which is the data about you and me, and how we can use that data to get a better understanding of you and me in the healthcare that we get. And the secondary use, which is research and innovation. And both are very closely related, because what we're now going to do is create the feedback loops between the two. So as we do more precise diagnosis and we aggregate that diagnosis in principle can become even more precise. As we do a procedure and learn from that procedure at scale, we can make that procedure better and more tuned to the patient. As we better understand what people need to recover into good health and do that across thousands of maybe even millions, we will be in a better position to drive those outcomes. And so it's not going to be the hospital in Amsterdam or the research institute in Frankfurt or the patient in Paris. Is going to be all of those. And we believe that it's in the real interest of the EU to embrace that health data space, both for primary use and secondary use, in the context of understanding that it has to be a federated model, that it should be consent driven, but it becomes also a big need to get us there, because the healthcare cost is, the rise of the healthcare cost is still exceeding GDP growth, definitely in the Western world. There's a huge shortage of professional healthcare staff. So we owe it to ourselves to solve that problem, while at the same time dramatically improving the innovation that we can create. And if we move away from our traditional thinking and embrace much more of an ecosystem approach of shared outcomes and services, I think we can truly get there. And that's not going to be the EU Commission or the Dutch government. It's not going to be the hospital in Paris or Lyon or Philips. It's going to be all of the above. And I think you will need the pragmatism of large-scale players, technology players. You need the EU governance and oversight, but you definitely need that joint goal of creating way better outcomes for all.
Yeah, the ecosystem is very, very important. We can agree more at ECH Alliance because we are promoting that since years. Joanne, you're as well very, very involved in the Gaia X initiative. Yeah. I wanted you to explain us a bit, what is Gaia X? What are their objectives? Who are the people behind this initiative? And how does it work and how we can be involved maybe? And the relation, if you can as well, the relation with this European Health Data Space initiative.
Well, let me say that specifically for healthcare. So let's say you run a startup, and that startup is looking at, clinical data or images and developing algorithms that you want to then bring back to the clinical practice and integrate into the care workflow. That's a real tall order. You may come up with the best algorithm in the world, but you're not sure whether it has learned on the right data set, that there is a secure approach to deal with the data, that as you start creating the evidence, that the consent is in place, that the semantical interoperability is in place. With other words, to become a successful innovator, you need a whole lot of infrastructure. And I believe that that infrastructure should be shared, that as we deploy health data spaces, that they come with basically compliance out of the box, interoperability tooling out of the box, data APIs out of the box, running in a secured environment, end-to-end secured, with standard consent built in, GDPR compliant, EU MDR, what have you, so that people don't need to worry about that. And that can become then a condition. So for instance, if you then do a large tender, you can say, well, I want it to be Gaia X compliant, or hey, let's set up this data space. I'm working on a data space here in the Netherlands. And from day one, we wanted to become Gaia X compliant because we want to get all these services out of the box rather than all building it. So the importance of Gaia X will be purely an enabler to get to scale, an enabler to put all these safeguards in place, which can be both on the infrastructure level, the services, but also on the legal compliance, recourse. Because I worked before in financial services, we created shared payment networks 25 years ago. And it was not just the payment networks, it was also the guarantees that you would give to resolve disputes, to deal with issues and problems. And we all know how successful that has become. You can go anywhere in the world and pay, and that payment system is working, and we trust it. But it started out the same way. It started out, what are the guarantees we're going to give? What's the trust you can put in here? And what are the standards you comply with, even though you still run your own banking system at the back, and you do your own authorization at the back. At the front, we're going to share a lot. And I think we can do that in the healthcare space as well.
Okay, thank you very much. I see that we are running out of time. We had plenty, I had plenty of subjects to ask you and questions to ask you for the rest, but we will have to conclude a bit now. I wanted to come back to this idea of ecosystem you were developing, Joanne, but as well the question of citizen involvement. We talked about stakeholder, the government, the company, the healthcare providers, of course, but at the end of the day, Lubna was reminding her work within the high-level expert group on trust policy AI and the ethics around that. At one point, the population, the citizens, the Europeans in general have to be embarked as well in this journey. It's very important that the population believe that what we are building at the European level, the European construction is effective, efficient, and serving the day-to-day life of everybody. So I wanted to ask you perhaps first from a European point of view, Marcus and Luisa, what is the place of citizens in your initiatives, and how do you inform and raise awareness among the population? And then maybe after Luisa and Marcus, Lubna would be keen to have your ethical point of view on the question. I don't know, Luisa, Marcus, who wants to reply first?
Well, thank you. Regarding the data train action, we have a dedicated work package as Luisa said, where Luisa is co-leading it, concentrating on the citizen. So citizen aspects of the health data use, but also on the data altruism practices. And that is partly also answering the question that that Lubna had regarding how to get access to the data. One way of accessing in the future in Europe is these data altruism practices that are also defined in the Data Governance Act. And there's also specific organization types in the future for collecting that data and which collects the consent from the individual, so that you don't need to ask each individual separately each time, but you have these organizations that are basically handling the data on behalf of the citizens. So also handling the consent of the citizens. And let's see how that proposal goes through. But I think it's a quite innovative way of getting access to the patient level data.
Sure. Luisa, you had as well initiative, I think, around citizens' involvement.
Exactly. So I already
I just ask you to be brief because we don't have a lot of time. Sorry.
Brief. Same law that I mentioned before has entrusted the Health Data Hub to inform and include citizens in our mandate. So we have a citizen directorate, even so very actively involved. We have published our commitments to our citizens. We have educational tools to better educate and make citizens gain knowledge about health data and their secondary use. We also really actively listen to citizens with national and EU consultations like the one which is part of TEDAS. We have focus groups, individual interviews, consensus conferences, and really many activities. We also have a public directory where all of our projects with health data are being published with the title and so on. So everything is transparent. And we support directly patient associations to become health data actors. So just as a conclusion, citizens and healthcare users in general, they don't just want to be part of data-driven research projects. They want to become actors of innovation, as mentioned by Marcus with the also data altruism provision. And we as Health Data Hub, we implement, we systematically integrate citizens, not only in our governance, but also in all of our activities. And for me and for the Health Data Hub, this is the foundation for trust and acceptability of such a project at the national level and also for the European level.
Thank you, Luisa. Lubna, just a word about the recommendation of the high-level expert group on the citizens' engagement and the ethics around that.
Yeah, so in the recommendations, we focused more on the kind of what is the key requirements to make trustworthy AI systems. The consumer voice was very strong in the high-level expert group, and how we can give the consumer and the patients a clear explainability, transparency about the AI systems work. I think from a personal perspective, looking at the patients, which are the consumers, the millennials, the Generation Z, it's a lot about speed as well. So yes, we need to be transparent, we need to explain, but the speed of delivery of services, in every domain, it's high. So they want a taxi, they all use Uber, they want a hotel, they use other platforms. So, and I think when it comes to healthcare, it's very slow. When it comes to our own health, it's very slow process. And if we don't act at speed, and we kind of retransform, reinvent our healthcare system to meet that speed of this generation, what's going to happen? Another big platform, and you know where it's going to come from, can go directly to the consumer and replace all our public healthcare systems, which that's not the situation we want to go to. So I think it's really the time now to kind of move fast and not to kind of build barriers. AI can solve a lot of bureaucracy, and I think that's for the next few years where we need to focus to bring that speed before we move to the next generation. I mean, the innovative treatments are already here for individualized healthcare. How can we move then as a system, as a whole, to individualized healthcare? It's going to be the big task on our for the next 10 years.
Thank you, Lubna. Joanne, a last word, perhaps in 20 seconds, if you can, on this population engagement.
Yeah, I think it's all about us and getting the data to understand our health better and improve ourselves. So I think everything we do is about outcomes, is about at scale helping people to live healthier lives. So That's more than engagement. That's actually make it consumer driven.
Perfect. Thank you very much for it's a great conclusion, I think, for this session, the humans first. So thank you very much to you for your participation and your insights. It was, I think, very interesting. Thank you to the audience to tune in at the MTech Europe forum. Thank you to the organizer, MTech Europe. And I give back the floor to Belfast Studio for the next session. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.